Let's go Dolphins! There's a change being discussed right now within the Miami Dolphins that could shock the entire fan base. And if it actually happens, you'll be able to look back and say, this was the franchise's turning point. But before I tell you what's really happening behind the scenes, I need to know who's still firmly behind this team. Click the like button right now if you believe the Dolphins are heading in the right direction. And go to the comments and write, I trust this team, if you remain optimistic, no matter what happens. Let's go! There are growing rumors that the Miami Dolphins could be considering a shocking move involving linebacker Jordyn Brooks. Yes, the same Jordyn Brooks who was an All-Pro in 2025, the same player who led the entire NFL in tackles, and the same leader who has been wearing that captain badge with pride over the past seasons. According to reports tied to Dallas Cowboys coverage, there has been internal discussion about potentially targeting Brooks in a trade. And let's be very clear here, this is not just any player being mentioned in trade talks. This is arguably one of the most reliable, consistent, and impactful defenders on the Miami Dolphins roster today. Since arriving in Miami on that extremely team-friendly 3-year, $27 million deal signed in 2024, Brooks has delivered elite production. That contract? It now looks like an absolute steal, considering he's performed like a top 5 to top 10 linebacker in the league ever since. But here's where things get complicated, and maybe even a little uncomfortable for fans. This front office, led by John Sullivan, has already shown that no one is truly untouchable. The recent move involving Jaylen Waddle shocked a lot of people, and now it's created this feeling that literally anything could happen next. If a player like Waddle can be moved, then yes, Jordyn Brooks can also be on the table. And that raises a serious question. What direction is this team really going in? Because from a football standpoint, trading Brooks creates a massive hole. Right now, the linebacker group has some stability. You have Brooks anchoring the middle, supported by players like Dodson and Willie Gay. That's a unit you can work with. But take Brooks out of that equation, and suddenly this defense, which is already being projected as one of the weakest in the league, gets even more vulnerable. And it's not just about stats. It's about leadership. Brooks is the kind of player who shows up every single week, gives maximum effort, and sets the tone in the locker room. When you're going through a transition or potential rebuild, those are exactly the types of players you usually want to keep, not trade away. However, there's another side to this story. Jordyn Brooks is entering the final year of his contract. That means a decision is coming, whether the team likes it or not. Extend him, or trade him now and get value before potentially losing him later? Because let's be honest, after 2 elite seasons and an All-Pro selection, Brooks is going to want a new deal, and it won't be cheap. There are already projections suggesting a possible extension could land somewhere around 3 years, $48 million, with significant guaranteed money. That's a serious investment, especially for a team that may still be shaping its long-term identity. So now the Dolphins are at a crossroads. Do you pay a 28-year-old linebacker top-tier money and build around his leadership? Or do you capitalize on his value right now, potentially gaining a 2nd or 3rd round pick, or even packaging him into a bigger draft move? And speaking of that, one of the most fascinating scenarios being discussed involves a potential deal with the Dallas Cowboys. A trade that could include not just Brooks, but also a swap of 1st-round picks, moving Miami up from pick 30 to pick 20. On paper, that kind of move could open the door to higher-tier talent in the draft and reshape the roster faster. But at what cost? You're giving up your defensive captain, your most productive linebacker, a proven All-Pro. And this is exactly where things start to get even more intense behind the scenes, because the decision around Jordyn Brooks is not happening in isolation. It's directly connected to the bigger vision that John Sullivan and this front office are trying to build for 2026 and beyond. Think about it for a second. If the Dolphins decide to move on from Brooks, it's not just about replacing a linebacker. It's about redefining the identity of this defense. Because when you remove a player who led the entire NFL in tackles and served as a captain, you're not just losing production, you're losing the heartbeat of that unit. Now internally, there's a real debate happening. On one side, you have the argument that Brooks is exactly the type of player you extend. A leader, durable, consistent, and coming off elite performance. The kind of guy you want younger players learning from. The kind of presence that stabilizes a locker room during uncertain times. But on the other side, there's the long-term strategy. Because if this team is not truly ready to compete for a Super Bowl in the next 1 to 2 seasons, then committing major money to a linebacker approaching his 30s becomes a real risk. And that's where the front office has to be brutally honest with itself. Are the Dolphins closer to contending, or are they still building? And if the answer is that they're still building, then trading Brooks while his value is at its absolute peak might be the smartest move, even if it's the hardest one to accept. Now let's go deeper into that Cowboys scenario, because this is where things get very interesting. The idea of flipping Brooks and moving from pick 30 to pick 20 in the first round is not just a random concept. It actually aligns with draft value charts, and it gives Miami a much wider range of options. At pick 20, you're no longer hoping talent falls to you. You're in position to go and get your guy. That could mean upgrading the offensive line, adding a dynamic weapon at wide receiver, or bringing in a high-upside defensive playmaker. The flexibility at that spot is significantly higher than at 30, and that's something this front office clearly values. But again, you're paying for that flexibility with Jordan Brooks. And if that trade happens, don't expect Miami to immediately replace him with a star. The plan would likely shift toward drafting a linebacker on day 2 or day 3, names like Jacob Rodriguez, Anthony Hill Jr., or others who bring potential, but not immediate all-pro production. So now you're talking about a defense that was already under pressure, becoming even younger and more unproven in key areas. That's the gamble. And let me tell you something, Dolphins fans, this is the kind of decision that defines a front office. If they get it right, you could be looking at a faster rebuild, more draft capital, and a stronger roster in 2 to 3 years. But if they get it wrong, you've just traded away one of your best players and leaders for uncertainty. And that's why this situation is creating so much tension internally and among fans. Because there's no safe answer here. Keeping Brooks means stability, leadership, and proven performance, but also financial commitment and potential long-term risk. Trading him means flexibility, future assets, and a new direction, but also immediate regression and a leadership void. So as all of this unfolds, one thing is clear, the Miami Dolphins are not playing it safe anymore. Every move we're seeing signals a team that is willing to take bold risks to reshape its future. Now before we wrap this up, I want you to do 3 things if you're truly locked in with this team. Hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and check out the next video on your screen because we're going to keep covering every single move this front office makes. But most importantly, I want your take right now. And here's the part that nobody is talking about enough. What message does this send to the locker room if Jordan Brooks is actually traded? Because players inside that building are watching everything. They saw what happened with Jaylen Waddle. Now they're hearing the rumors about Brooks. And when moves like this start to stack up, it creates a very real question among the roster. Who's next? That uncertainty can either fuel a team or fracture it. If you're a young player trying to establish yourself, maybe you see opportunity, more snaps, bigger role, your chance to step up. But if you're a veteran, if you're someone who values stability and leadership, you might start wondering if this organization is fully committed to winning right now, or if it's playing the long game. And that's why Jordan Brooks is such a critical piece in this entire situation. He's not just a top performer, he's a tone setter. The kind of player who shows up every Sunday and gives you everything, no questions asked. The kind of leader who keeps standards high even when things aren't going your way. Losing that? It's not something you can easily replace with a draft pick. At the same time, the NFL is a business, and sometimes the smartest moves are the ones that hurt the most in the moment. If Miami truly believes that moving Brooks helps them build a more complete roster, especially with multiple high-value draft picks, then this could be part of a bigger master plan. A plan where they reset key positions, get younger, cheaper, and more flexible, and then strike aggressively when the window to contend fully opens. But let me challenge you with this. What if Jordan Brooks is exactly the kind of player you need to create that winning window? Because not every rebuild is about tearing things down completely. Some